It's really cool to just have people in their 20s in general on this platform to, talk about real life shit that people who are 20 years old, have to deal with.
Yes, yes, everybody. Welcome back to another weekly edition of ISD and School Detention. Pierce is normally with me, not today. He is on a trip to New York, doing some model shoots. So all props to him, man. I'm proud of him, the way his career is expanding. But regardless, I wanted to have this guest on one-on-one. I want to be selfish because I'll be honest with you guys. This gentleman, first thing that really attracted me to him was the fact that he's on Twitter. He interacts with everybody. No matter who you are, no matter what you say, he's going to try to, well, it does matter what you say because, you can't respond to everything. But it gave off a good vibe to me where I feel like I could reach out. So I shot some tweets, I asked his opinions, and of course this man answered back. So without much further ado, I do want to introduce you guys to Pierre Andresen, a.k.a., I don't want to say this wrong, Pee-wee the Plug Ho,
yes,
a.k.a. Big Guy Stacks Porzingis. I don't want to fuck a YouTube name up. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sure you worked hard on nicknames.
No, you good. Big Stacks Porzingis, Pee-wee the Plug. And forget those, though. You said the most important thing right, which is my government name, Pierre Andresen. A lot of people mess my name up and say Anderson. But yeah, Andresen. So I appreciate that more than anything. But I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the love, and I'm excited to talk about whatever it is we're gonna talk about.
Yes, me too, bro. I am too. We could talk about anything under the sun. I'll be honest with you. It's overrange. Before we even press record, we're having a conversation that has
Yeah.
I was completely just. It was a big conversation though. The conversation was just about seeing both sides of the coin. You were talking to me about being from the west side of Chicago, correct?
Yeah.
Talk to me about what that was like.
During it wasn't anything. It was just living. Because when you in it, you don't really see the things that you see when you are removed from it. Like, especially as a kid, when you're growing up in a certain environment, you don't realize what's going on because it's all you know. It's literally all you know. So until you escape that or leave it temporarily, you don't have anything to compare it to. So growing up, it wasn't nothing bad to me. It was the way life was. I didn't know what the suburbs was. I didn't know what certain things was. So my environment was all I knew. The hood was all I knew. I didn't even know it was the hood. It was just where we lived. And then as years go by, and fortunately enough, my mom was able to remove me out of that environment early enough. I was able to then, hindsight, look back and compare, where we went to after the hood and say, okay, so that wasn't normal, or that it's more to life than that. But I'm still appreciative of being from that because it definitely molded me into who I am as a person, because I do have the ability and the what's the word? The luxury of being able to see all sides of the fence, or both sides of the fence.
Which side of the fence has taught you more? The side you're on now or the side you grew up from?
I think it's equal, because without where I came from, I wouldn't have a certain appreciation of the opportunities I have now, because it's a lot of people that from that area or from, still in that area who never got a chance to see the other side. So they're then stuck. And what you see is mug shots, obituaries, and things like that, which we know is something that's real and it's serious. So I would say both. Obviously, that portion of my life early on is going to be a lot smaller the more and more I continue to grow, because I'm just getting started in what I'm doing now. But the more and more I solidify myself and continue to do what I'm doing, it'll be unbalanced. So, the second half, or, post poverty or whatever, would definitely have a bigger impact in the future. But as of right now, it's still a 50-50 balance for me.
Do you have a hard time sometimes leaving? And please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not from any of that at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, the West Side. I grew up in a very nice area. I lived in the same house that I've been in since I was 5, until I just moved out like last month. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but as a lot of us know, growing up on the West Side is tough. The West Side of Chicago. Do
Yeah.
you the lessons that you've learned, and sometimes you have to adapt certain mannerisms, certain things that you do when you're from that to be able to survive. Do you cross those over to your current path now, or have to leave that behind? Because there's a time and place for everything.
No, it's definitely a time and place for everything. But I am who I am. That's just the basis of it. And what I've learned by being who I am and fully accepting and embracing who I am, I've learned that others will embrace it too. It's all about how you embrace it. There's no code or no guide on who to be or how to be you. You just have to be it. And people respect more than anything authentic, like you being your authentic self. So, people will put it out there to make you feel like you have to conform to whatever it is that you're trying to do or you're trying to reach, but you don't have to conform. Being you is the best thing you can offer to whatever it is you're trying to give yourself to, whether it's a Fortune 500 company, whether you're trying to build a fan base brick by brick, whether you are trying to be in a relationship with a young woman, whoever you're trying to give yourself to or whatever you're trying to give yourself to, if you're authentic, it will get no better than that. People will be happy to accept you and they'll embrace you for who you are, because that's the only thing they can do. But when you go into somewhere and you conform and you're being somebody that you're not, they're going to prefer that. You know what I mean? They're going to prefer that at first, but then after a while, once they realize it really isn't you, they're going to be turned off. Just like if we go into a building right now, me and you, and we're trying to get jobs, and you're in there acting like somebody that you're totally not. At first, they might like it because they don't know any better, but after a while, once they realize it's not you, I mean, we probably not going to get those jobs. Vice versa. If we and you go to the hood right now, and you go and you try to act hood, and that's not you, they after a while, once they realize it's not you, you're going to look kind of corny. But if you go to the hood and you just being just being yourself, nobody's gonna mind. You're gonna get embraced because they're gonna respect that you just being you. You can't not respect somebody just being them true selves. That's the realest thing you can do. You know what I mean? That's the realest thing you can do is just be yourself.
How did you? What things have if you can speak on it, but like what things have taken action in your life to make you come to that realization that being you is the best thing for oneself?
First and foremost, just the people I'm surrounded by. I think I have two very intelligent and prideful parents, and to start with them. And prideful in a good way, because pride isn't always a good thing, but prideful in a good way of just, just like I said, just being who you are. They've always, encouraged me to just be exactly who I want to be. And then early on in my life, moving from the hood to the suburbs was big for me too. Then, because you got to understand, I'm coming from a certain place, and I'm going to a new place that I've never ever seen, and I'm around for the first time in my life predominantly white people. So automatically, as a kid, you're trying to change and adapt. And that was a big life lesson for me then early on, because I was trying to adapt to my new circumstance and my new way of life, and I didn't fit in. But once I became me and I was just like, you know what, I'm just whatever, I'm just being me, I was more accepted, and they took heed to that, because now I was something that was different from them. And that's the beauty of it. Underneath all of it is like, you go somewhere and you're trying to conform or adjust or be a part of what they're doing, and that's boring to them because everybody else is like that. And you're doing it thinking you're going to fit in better, but by being your unique self, which is going to stand out, it's something new and refreshing to whatever situation you're going into. So they're going to gravitate towards that quicker than something that they have already seen. If I bring you a pair of Air Force Ones, just all white, they'll be cool. But if I bring you something with some color in it and something different, you're probably going to gravitate to the thing that's different because you've already seen the white Air Force One already. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just a simple basic shoe. But if I bring you something with color, flair, something you've never seen before, you're probably going to gravitate to that more. and that was a early lesson that I learned from just moving from the hood to the suburbs, and just that change of life, the pace, the people, predominantly white people, the way that they speak, the way things look, it's all it was different.
What suburban neighborhood did you move to?
I moved to what was the first? I moved to LaGrange Park, so that was the first place I lived besides the hood. Yeah, LaGrange Park, and then from LaGrange I moved to Woodridge, then Woodridge to Bolingbrook, and then Bolingbrook to Willowbrook. And then throughout the course of my life, my dad has always lived in the Oak Park area.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, my parents not together, but they raised me together. So
that's important. That is so important. That's
important.
Powerful. Oh man.
So
especially in the life of a black man. That's great. That's yes.
Yeah. So I moved all of those different areas, but then within living in those areas, I've always was a part of like Oak Park because my dad lived there. So when I would go with my dad for the summer or for those little weeks in spring break or like a few days out of Christmas break or every other weekend type thing, it would be in the Oak Park area. So
now, to what you're saying about fitting in, it's interesting you bring that up because as I'm older now, I'm starting to find my sense of identity. I was someone we grew up differently, Like I said, I'm not from the hood whatsoever. From a very nice suburban place.
Mm-hmm.
It was diverse. I've been in the same house since I was 5 until I moved out about a month ago.
And I love that. I love that. Not to cut you off, but I love that the same house type thing. Like stability is big. It's a pro and con and everything, but I love hearing you say that.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? I'm super blessed because at my current job where I work at, I see a lot of different people of all walks of life come in. I can't say what exactly I do on air because that would conflict with my actual 9 to 5, and I got bills to pay.
Right.
So, but I see all different walks of kinds of people come in. Met guys my age. I met someone the other day, and I don't know her full story, but she was 22 years old, younger than me, but she's on her 4th kid. And then I look at myself like I turned 24 in August and I have no kids and I just moved out of my house. It goes to show you that everyone runs different paths and things in different like races in life. But it's interesting to see it come together because I've had stability. Both my parents were together my entire life. And as I'm older and I'm used to living the way that I'm living, so I'm just like, oh, this is good. Ain't nothing wrong with this. As I'm out here in this world, because I call this job like college, and because it's the most exposure I've ever had to the world, because it literally brings the world in one place. It don't make sense because I tell you, but like I go there and everything I know about myself, everything I think is right, is just like damn near thrown in the fucking garbage. All of it's just like shook up. It shook my whole world up working at this job I work at, because I see people older who grew up in the hood. I see people who have not made the best choices in life. I see people who didn't have a choice but to make bad choices in life. And it gives you kind of both sides. And it's humbling. And it makes you appreciate what you have. But hearing you telling me your story about how, you're from the west side of Chicago. I know other people from the west side of Chicago. You have put yourself in a position to succeed. So I want to ask the question. Is it about the environment or is it the person? Because there are also, I'm sure like you said, some people who are from where you're from who are in a position that you're in. So do you think it's more environment or the choices of the person that can determine whether they succeed in life?
I don't want to do the whole it's both because obviously it is. So I'm trying to really, more than either of those two, I think the people around you. So I credit my parents a lot. That's why I brought them up when I was speaking on it earlier, because like my mom made that conscious effort, to make sure that I was removed out of that situation at a young age, like young enough to where, I think she moved me at a time right before it could change me. You know what I mean?
What age were you?
How old was I? I wasn't 10 yet. It was definitely like, I wasn't even double digits, but I was starting to get old enough to be aware of what was going on. So I would probably say maybe like 7, because when I moved wait, when I moved, I was in kindergarten. But when I was fully out of the hood, I was probably in like first or second grade, so that age. Because when we moved, I grew up with my family, like it was a family home. So it was my grandpa, me and my mom, my uncle, both of my uncles, and then my aunt lived with us. We had one of those family houses in the west side of Chicago, and I grew up like that. But then, like I was saying, at one of those early ages, like maybe 6, my mom moved me. Me and her moved into the suburbs, but they still lived in the hood. So I would still be over there all the time and go visit my grandpa and be with my uncles and aunties. That we would still be over there. So I wasn't fully out of the hood until probably second grade. And it's still young, but I think that's where a lot of that stuff starts. The earlier you can get out of there and the less they can see, because kids at a young age understand. That's one thing I think people take for granted or they don't really understand is that kids, they see things, they pick up on things, they're aware of what's going on. I think probably at 4 or 5 they start to pick up things, and people will be surprised on what they can understand and what they're seeing. But yeah, I say my parents. My mom made the conscious effort to remove not only me but herself out of that situation, and then start the trend. And so it was like a domino effect. Once my mom left, she was the older sister. And went to the suburbs and made that risk. It encouraged everybody else to do it. And then my aunt was next. And then my uncles slowly started to move and everything like that. And then especially after my grandfather passed, everybody just migrated to the suburbs. So that was big. And then, like I said, my dad, he lived in Oak Park, which is city suburban type mix. But it's definitely a beautiful place to be. Not anything like the west side of Chicago, but it's still right by the west side of Chicago. So you get that mix of both. So, I credit my parents because I think a lot of kids or a lot of people I grew up with, they didn't have the opportunity I had because their parents wasn't making a conscious effort to remove them out of the situation. So at that point, I don't think you can say it's the person because they're just doing what they know to do. They're just living life. They can't control their parents not moving or not trying to get them out of that situation. They just, they have to live, and that's just what happens.
Yeah, that's a really good point. At the same time, it's as much as it is the environment. And that's why it's a tough question. Because they're only doing what, like, the person's making the decisions, but the person only can get these decisions from the environment that they're in.
Exactly.
So, and even though I asked you that question, it was tough. You did a good job, but that was a tough question because it's almost like there's no right answer.
Yeah, it's really not, because we could sit up here all day and be like, man, he foolish for doing that. Like, why would he do that? Why would he join the gang? There's nothing to come. But at the same time, I think what a lot of people fail to realize is, being a product of your environment is big. And not even in a hood sense. Like, we can look at an NBA team, right? And if the NBA team or our organization has a type of environment where we're getting better as basketball players, you'll see guys thrive in a certain situation opposed to another organization who, their environment isn't to get better. There's certain franchises in the NBA or even in sports in general who just have this like the Cleveland Browns, and I know they're winning this year, but like for a majority of my life, they've been looked at as a disastrous organization. They've always sucked. They've never been good. And I'm 25, and for probably 97% to 98% of my life, they've been trashed. They've been trashed, and it's the environment that's there to not allow all of their players to fully develop and be the best that they can be. Versus other teams that you may look at and they have a history of getting the best out of their players, it's because of the environment. The environment to things are just is crucial. Work environments, like your job. I don't know what it is like at your job, but if you enjoy your job, it's probably because of the environment. You can have a dream job, but if the environment isn't right, that dream job is a disaster.
Right.
And it's just like growing up. Like we can say that, hey man, he was dumb for robbing that bank or for shooting somebody or for joining a gang, but that's literally all that they know. They don't. They literally. There's people I know that never left the hood. They don't know anything but the hood. As crazy as that may sound, they know nothing but the hood.
And you know what? To me, and it makes sense, but every time I hear it, it still boggles my mind because, again, the way I grew up, and I don't want to judge anybody because things happen for a reason, and who am I to judge because I'm no better than the next person? You know what I'm saying? But
No, without a doubt.
and I look at certain decisions, like for example, someone decides to rob a bank, or someone tries to do something like that. I look at like, yo, like why doesn't he know there's other options? And that's for me looking from the outside in and growing up where I grow up. Let's take the scenario of robbing a bank, for example. Let's say his name, we'll call him Carl. Say Carl robs a bank. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, Carl, why would you try to rob that bank? Because from the outside looking in, I see, yo, you can get a job, get a 9 to 5. There's the unemployment office. You could go to school. You could pick up a trade. You could do whatever. But all Carl saw, which is to go pick up that gun and go hold up a bank. And now Carl's doing X amount of years in prison. Or Carl is dead. Or say Carl had kids. Now no one's raising those kids. Like I for the longest time, and still sometimes, forget to see the other side. Because
it's easy too. It's easy to not see it.
Because like it'll be a reaction. Like it'll be just like, why would he do that? That makes no sense. But then you gotta understand everything behind it. You talked about environment, and I want to get into basketball later, but this conversation is flowing wherever, so I'm cool with it. A perfect team, the team that's in the NBA Finals, Miami. When they talk about the Heat, they talk about the culture of the Heat.
Mm-hmm.
A perfect example would be, even though he's not on the Heat anymore, but it's Deion Waiters. When Deion Waiters was on the Heat, that man was a bucket.
Yep.
Pure bucket. But what team was he on before that? Cleveland. He was on Cleveland. It was Cleveland then OKC.
Yep.
Cleveland, he was okay. He was still behind Kyrie, and then Bron got there, and then there was that whole debacle. He went to OKC with KD and Russ, and that was good. But then he went to Miami, lost a bunch of weight. Spoelstra gave him the ball, and he went absolutely nuts. Like, real talk, and please correct me if I'm wrong, for like a good 2 weeks, he was damn near the best two-guard in the league. Like, Deion Waiters was balling out crazy when he first got to Miami.
No, yeah, he had that stretch, for sure.
Yeah, and so that goes into talking. We talk about environment and where you fitting in and being yourself. Jimmy Butler, he was in Minnesota. That shit didn't work out. He was in Philly. That shit didn't work out. Everybody pegged him as the villain. Jimmy's a bad teammate. Jimmy's hard to work with, yada, yada, yada. But both those teams, well, Philly was still trying to develop a winning culture, and they still are, in my opinion, because, But you go to Miami, which is a winning culture, he's thriving. And now everybody else looks crazy.
Yeah.
So,
I credit Jimmy Butler to being one of the, people try to label Jimmy Butler as a superstar. I don't think Jimmy Butler is a superstar player, but what I do say about Jimmy Butler is that he's one of the most intelligent players, because what he did was exactly what you were just saying. He figured out his identity, who he is, just like we talked about early in this conversation and just in the world. And that's why basketball is one of the most beautiful sports, and why sports are so beautiful is because it lines up. It's a parallel with life. But he found his identity as a basketball player, and he did his homework on where he would fit. What environment can I go to and thrive and be me? And even if it isn't going, like even if the Heat wasn't in the finals, Jimmy Butler would be cool and would be happy because of the environment. See, the thing about the other teams is when he lost, not only am I losing, but I'm not even enjoying the environment. So like the Timberwolves, nobody expected the Timberwolves, including Jimmy Butler, to be a championship contender. But what he expected was, okay, even while we're working to get to that contender or to be elite, we're going to work, or it's going to be a certain type of environment. But he couldn't withstand the storm because, like I said, even when I'm losing, even when I'm winning, I'm not having fun with it because it's just not the environment. So it's like, if I'm not going to be winning and I'm not going to be happy with the environment, what the hell am I here for? There's no reason for me to be here for. But even like I said, Miami, they're probably going to lose this series, and he's still going to be fine with that because, hey, we lost our way, and we lost in a way where I was still happy. Everything that I asked for, we did, and we just came up short, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if we're coming up short but we're not doing it the way that I want to do it, and it's not the environment that I'm used to or feel comfortable in, and I feel like people ain't working as hard as me, and we not holding each other accountable, then yeah, why am I here? And I think Jimmy Butler's mistake was, well, it wasn't even a mistake. He was traded. But yeah, I think he just had unfortunate situations where he was traded to teams that didn't do things the way he's used to. And as a leader, he tried to go in there and force it when leadership is something that happens over time. Like, you can't change the culture of a team so quickly, especially when you have guys who are already solidified. Like Joel and Ben runs Philly. Jimmy can't come in and call the shots there because they already run that team. Minnesota, Cat runs that. They're going to cater to Cat before they cater to Jimmy Butler. That's why I say Jimmy Butler is smart, because he found a team that didn't have a Carlton Towns or Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons that he could go to and lead, and they would cater to him. Because they have good players. Bam is up and coming. Tyler Hero is up and coming. But those guys aren't at the level of Carlton Towns, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid. Those guys are future superstars already. We're building around them. Miami wasn't building around Bam and Tyler Hero yet. Now with Jimmy there, they've elevated their games, and now we're looking at them as like they're building blocks for the future. But Jimmy, got there before that they can even solidify themselves, and now he's able to have that leadership role that he's always been searching for.
Yes, and it's really good to see that, because I think people, and I was talking to actually my girl about this a few weeks ago. No, this is when the bubble first came back. I was just explaining to her how important our sports are to the world. Not only just, entertainment and revenue and whop the bam, just overall to human society as people all across the world. Sports has saved the lives of a lot of people. Sports has given people jobs. Sports has done a lot. So the biggest thing I like about the Miami Heat, as much as that they play hard and that they win, is that they have culture and integrity. Pat Riley not folding for shit. Jimmy Butler not folding for shit. They're two people that don't settle. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. Especially with Pat Riley. I think he set the standard for the Miami Heat way further than anybody can even imagine. Like what you mentioned earlier with Deion Waiters is one of the things that I love. Like, body fat percentage has to be a certain way. Like, shit like that is crazy to me. Like that, like they're running their shit like a college basketball team, which is hard to do. I think that's another thing. We have to remember that this is the NBA. You're paying millions. These are grown men who are millionaires who usually call the shots. So I admire Pat Riley a little bit more than Jimmy Butler in this situation, even though you're right, they both aren't guys who are going to settle. But what Pat Riley is doing is 10 times harder, because you're making guys who don't necessarily have to buy in, which is the hardest thing to do in the NBA. Because, like I said, these are grown men, number one, who are multimillionaires. Like college, those kids don't have a choice. They have to listen to John Calipari. He runs Kentucky. Mm-hmm. A player can't not do what John Calipari tells them what to do, because they're not going to play, and then they won't be able to get to the NBA. But once you're already in the NBA and the team is already paying you a salary, you kind of call the shots. That's why you see a lot of players can get coaches fired, or they'll get whatever they want because
I hate that shit too, by the way. I hate that shit. I think that shit is lame. I hate how coaches get blamed for everything. I don't think Doc should have got let go.
No, without a doubt. But that's just the reality of it, because the players run the league. If a franchise has to choose between a player and a coach, majority of the times they're rolling with the player. The player is making $100 million. We ain't seen no coach yet make $100 million. We ain't seen no coach yet have a $30 million salary. You know what I mean? Like, so 9 times out of 10, they got to roll with it. And because of what you said, revenue and all of that, players bringing that in. So sometimes a franchise may not even want to fire the coach, but they have to, because the player is the one selling the jerseys, putting the players in the seats. Putting the fans in the seats, and or who the fans are coming to watch. So yeah, the Clippers, we can't get rid of Kawhi or Paul George and keep Doc, because Kawhi and Paul George are the ones on the billboards. That's what gives us the star power to put people in the seats, not Doc Rivers. So we have to cater to these two dudes. So it could be a tricky game, and that's why me personally, if I am ever involved in coaching down the line, it's something I would want to get into. It would be at the college level. If I do anything in the NBA, it would be front office, GM, and stuff like that, scouting. But as far as being a head coach of an NBA team, it doesn't look appealing to me because the players have more control than they probably should at times.
I would definitely completely agree with that. Even besides that, like, and now what you're saying about filling the seats, right? While PG and Kawhi, they fill those seats, Pat Bev, Lou Will, and on paper, they're amazing. But again, that's on paper. In my opinion, even though it may take longer, and I'm sure you would agree, what fills the seats is winning. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at the Denver team with Andre Iguodala, right? You remember that team? Ty Lawson, Iggy, Corey Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
They were like 38-3 at home, right?
Wilson Chandler.
Yes, that was probably my favorite player on that team. Just he was a bucket. But I say that I bring up that team because they had no true superstar, but they were winning, and winning fills the seats as much as that does. And so if I'm Steve Ballmer or whoever made the decision to let go of Doc, I would look and I'd evaluate, like, I gave up SGA and a lot of future draft picks for a dude that came in and then just kind of went boo. And I'm not trying to say that Paul George is a bad player. I think Paul George is a dope player. He killed it in OKC. I think Paul George is one of the best players on the planet. But I think that when you look at it, the big picture, from a personnel standpoint, I don't think Doc was a problem. I think that they just needed a point guard, and this also goes into why I hate that coaches get blamed, because you look at Dwayne Casey in Toronto. When he got fired, it wasn't his fault. They played the best they could. It's not his fault he had to play LeBron every year in the conference finals. It was 3 years in a row?
Yeah.
3 years in a row, they met LeBron in the playoffs. Washed them. Same thing with that Atlanta team that had 5 All-Stars. That team was really, really, really good. But what happened? They had to play Bron. And yet, Budenholzer got let go. Then they blew up that team. And so, I guess it's nothing. It's something that doesn't really have an easy answer. You don't pay coach as much as you pay the players, which I understand that, and I'm for all that. But it just sucks. It really does suck.
From a few standpoints, I agree. Winning does fill the seats, but winning ain't gonna fill the seats how it will when a superstar. Just like the Hawks, that Hawks team where they didn't have a superstar either, where like 4 of them made the All-Star game, Kyle Korver, that team wasn't filling those seats because they don't have a superstar. They were winning, but they don't have a superstar. You look at a team. Well, I'm trying to think of a team like who superstar that was on a team that was mediocre. I don't know, but I like winning. I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, when you have 2 potential top 10 players, you're probably going to stick with that and go with any. You're going to give that every chance you can to win, because even without Doc, that team could still win because that team is that talented. So I don't think I agree. I wouldn't blame Doc. I wouldn't blame Paul George. I would blame a lot of different components. Kawhi Leonard, for him to be a player that people were saying was the best player in the NBA, he sure as hell played not to that caliber in Game 7 or in Game 2 when he went 4 for 17 with 13 points. So it's a lot of different things. I was also a big component when the bubble started on my podcast. I said to my guy, for some reason, when I watch the Clippers, it seems like something is missing. And then I said, you know what's missing is guard play. They don't have a headstrong, steady point guard who's going to get things organized when they do get scrambled. They don't need an all-star point guard or anything like that, but just somebody who is a strong head veteran who can get guys in places and say, hey, Paul George ain't got a shot in the last 5 trips. So the next time we come down here, I'm running a play for PG to get him involved because I need him to make a shot so he can turn it up on the defensive end. And they didn't have that, and it was the first year. Rarely the first year do things pop off. I know Golden State did theirs, but they had a 73-win team and added the greatest score of all time. Of course that worked. But very rarely do you assemble these star-studded teams and they work. You have to have that first year to blueprint what we're missing and what we need, and you go back to the drawing table and you fill those holes, because there's not many holes with the Clippers. There's not. So the next coach that comes there is going to have a hell of a ride because, they already came up short. So that your superstar players are hungry and they have points to prove. Paul George knows he has to come back and send a message because he's being disrespected like no other. Kawhi knows that he just put up a terrible game 7. And then you're going to, up top, you're going to fill the holes and you have a blueprint. You have something to look at to say what was missing. When you're putting a team together on paper, like you said, it don't look like anything is missing because it's on paper. But once you put it on the floor, you're able to evaluate, okay, we need a strong head point guard, somebody who's going to be able to play off the ball with Paul George and Kawhi, but somebody who can also play with the ball to settle us down in the closing minutes of the game. Boom. Okay, we're going to need size because Montrezl Harrell struggled. We may have to even consider not bringing him back. You have all of these things that you can now evaluate to get better versus when you first assemble the team and you haven't even seen them play. So on paper, it just looks like y'all flawless. So I think the Clippers they're still good. I don't think they should have panicked, but they did say that it was a mutual thing. So there's a situation where maybe Doc, mutually they was just like, it's just best that we go our separate ways. And I think that's okay too. Now Doc is in Philly, which is a situation where I think he is needed because those two guys have yet to play for a coach that would hold them accountable. And I'm talking about Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. We heard from different sources like Jimmy Butler that nobody was there holding them accountable. So now you got somebody, Doc Rivers, who's respected, a championship coach, and he can come in and get those guys to be held accountable. And I think that's just a good situation for him as well. He's 13 consecutive years where he's made the playoffs, and it ain't gonna stop with Philly. So Doc Rivers, he ain't missing the Clippers at all.
He's also an NBA champion. A lot of people seem to forget that Doc Rivers is a championship coach.
No, yeah, that's because we live in a "what have you done for me lately" society. I mean, he won the championship almost a decade or more ago. So I mean, I feel him. He definitely, it's only so long you can hold on to that championship ring. Because since then he has blown 3-1 leads, which I don't think is all his fault because the first 3-1 lead with the Clippers, Chris Paul got hurt. That team was always banged up, so I don't really fault him for the Lob City Clippers. Blake Griffin and Chris Paul could never stay on the floor at the same time, especially during the playoffs. And then this team, it was a brand new team, first year, and they shit the bed, and it happens. But he left, and he went to a situation where I think he could strive into, which I think is now if he was jobless and couldn't get a job, I would be upset. But he was able to bounce back.
Yeah, that would be crazy. Now, and this goes to something else I want to talk about. If he was jobless, right? Now I know Steve Nash got hired before Doc got let go.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen A. Smith said what he said about racism. He wasn't coming at Steve Nash, but racism among the coaching ranks in the NBA. How there's a lot of unemployed black coaches, but Steve Nash just gets hired off whip, and he's a white guy. Which, to a certain extent, I agree with Stephen A. Because Mark Jackson still doesn't have a job. Sam Cassell doesn't have a job. People with coaching experience. But at the same time, I feel like had that happened and had Steve got a job before Doc, I would definitely want to cape for what Stephen A. said more. Because that just doesn't make any sense to me.
The reason I don't agree with Stephen A. Smith in that specific thing is because Steve Nash is different. I think he has more of I think that statement is more suited for a Luke Walton, Dave Yeagers, Budenholzer, like these guys that are just constantly getting jobs, right? Mm-hmm. Mark Jackson, first and foremost, definitely deserves a job. But at the same time, I'm not sure if Mark Jackson wants another job. And also the thing about Mark Jackson is he has to go and make sure that whenever it is he wants to work, he has to make sure he's going to a situation where he's going to be able to thrive. Because what they like to do, and this is something that goes on in coaching in all sports, there's definitely have been white privilege in coaching. More so in the past years, it's getting better in all sports. We're seeing more black football coaches. We're seeing more minority managers in baseball. And now we're starting to see a lot more black coaches in the NBA, which is a black dominant sport. So it makes sense. You know what I mean? just like hockey. It would be weird if majority of the coaches who were black in hockey when it's a white dominated sport. So, Steve Nash is a 2-time MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Very well connected, very well respected, highly intelligent. So when he put his name in a coaching search, he's going to, of course, he has a certain resume that's going to get him a job. So I don't think that's white privilege. It's just that it's player privilege. It's that he's an Hall of Fame 2-time MVP who played for one of the most historical offenses ever. The way that the NBA is played today is based off kind of how they played in 03-04 Suns, like the 7 seconds or less. He's a component of that. So I think he is a cheat code to that. But I think you look at other coaches, and there's been history that says, trying to think of a situation like Luke Walton. Luke Walton lost that job with the Lakers and went right to the Kings. But like when Mark Jackson was fired, we didn't see him bounce back. And of course, I'm not saying that it was for any reason, but it does look funny in the light sometimes. And it could be, like I said, maybe Mark Jackson doesn't want to coach right now. He's doing his thing, but I just wouldn't use that narrative with Steve Nash because he's a lot different. I would use it for somebody that hasn't proven anything, like a Luke Walton. There's a bunch of coaches that has got plenty of opportunities. You're like, why are they constantly? And now they're not. So, but like Randy, I don't know if you know Randy Whitman. For a long time, Randy Whitman was the coach of the Wizards, and they weren't really doing shit. It was like
tall white guy. Is a tall white guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there before Scott Brooks.
Yep.
He was. That was the funniest thing ever. The look on John Wall's face. He sat down the huddle on timeout, and he didn't know what side of the clipboard to write on. That was hilarious.
Yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot. But I mean, I agree with him in the full statement. I just don't agree with it with Steve Nash because any player with the resume and the caliber of who he is going to get a job. Like if Steph Curry retires, he wanted to be a coach, he's instantly probably going to get some looks because it's Steph Curry. Same thing with LeBron James. There's a lot of players who, when they retire, if they instantly want to become coaches, and Steve Nash didn't even instantly do it. But like Jason Kidd is a great example. Jason Kidd that's a black man. As soon as he retired, he got a job because it's Jason Kidd. It's Jason Kidd. We have to start. It would be better if you're using, like I said, Luke Walton, because nothing Luke Walton did ever showed that he should have gotten as many chances as he did. Sure, he did his thing with the Warriors, but that was already a team that was complete, and Steve Kerr kind of ran, and he just came in when Steve Kerr left. So sure, the Lakers will get him, but I think that was more a relationship thing. He played
definitely relationship.
Comes from Phil Jackson's tree of coaching. He was under Steve Nash with the Warriors. His dad is Bill Walton. You know what I mean? He had the relationship with Kobe and everybody. So boom, he got the Lakers job. That didn't work out. Boom, Shaq owns the Kings, former Laker type situation, so boom, you get another chance. And it's just like shit like that is more so where it's like, why is that guy getting as many chances and not these other guys? But I'm fine with it. I think Luke Walton, I thought highly of him too. But it's definitely, I want to see black coaches get the same thing because certain black coaches will go to teams and they'll have these losing records and we'll never see them again at a head coaching spot. They get like one chance, and then we always see them as assistant coaches. I'm glad you named Sam Cassell though, because he's the guy that I want to see get a chance to maybe interview for that Clippers job. Him, Tyronn Lue, they were already assistants of the team, so might as well let them interview.
Sam Cassell's been an assistant for a while. I think wasn't he on the Clippers coaching staff when Vinny Del Negro was there?
No, I don't think. If he was, it may have been. Oh, boy.
Maybe like a player development role, but he's been on that Clippers bench for a while.
He was with the Wizards for a long time because I went to a Wizards-Bulls playoff game, and he was out there, and we said what up to him, whatever. And that was years ago. So I'm trying to think if that he could have been there the last year Vinny Del Negro was there. But yeah, he's been with the Clippers for a while, but he was also with the Wizards, and John Wall credited him a lot for the improvement on his mid-range game, his pace, because John Wall came into the league knowing one speed, 100 miles per hour, and that was it. Sam Cassell came through, helped him slow up the game, how to pick and choose his paces, how to use his speed to his advantage, and then worked on that jump shot to open up the rest of his game. So Sam Cassell is definitely a guy who, if not this year, in the near future, he'll get a job. It's a lot of jobs opening up. So, I'll definitely be expecting to see Sam Cassell getting a job soon as a head coach.
Yes, and to fact check us, Wizards assistant coach, he retired at 2009 from Boston. He became a coach immediately, right in 2009. Washington Wizards assistant from 2009 to 2014, and then from 2014 to present, he's been with the Clippers.
And
so
was Vinny Del Negro coaching them in 2014?
Let me see, Vinny Del Negro. Let me see. I was in high school. That's when Lob City was really popping. When I graduated high school in 2014. So let me.
I graduated the year before you.
Yeah, it's interesting. One thing I really do.
Nah, he wasn't coaching them in 2014. He stopped.
Nope, 2013. Yep. I just looked it up. One thing I was about to say, since we talked about years graduating, one thing I really think is dope about, at least what I see is that I see you in a place where I want to be. Not exactly what you're doing, because we're two different people, but I see you doing that, and we're not that far apart in age. I didn't know how old you were until you told me that. But I knew you around my age just from peeping, your content and watching that. So to see someone so that's like me, that looks like me, that's around my age, has the same interests as me, in the position that you're in. And I know you want to go higher, but to see that, to see where you're in terms of the podcast, your YouTube channel, branding, Rich Visit, Flex, Hayes, I see it all, and it's really inspiring, bro. Honestly, it really is.
No, I appreciate that, and that's part of that's part of the journey that makes it easy to sacrifice things, because to get to where I'm at, and then also where I'm trying to go and where we're all trying to go, which is to be elite status in what we do. It takes hard work. It takes sacrificing. It takes extra hours and things like that. But it makes it worth it when you can be inspiration for somebody else to do what they want to do. And I don't believe in measuring success on where you are. I think success is where you want to be. And I don't know if that makes sense, but having 1.5 million followers for me, it wouldn't make me feel successful. I just want to do what I do and do it well and grow, and just grow, whether it's brick by brick or whatever, but just to be able to do what you love to do at a high level is more valuable than any number can put on it. So if I'm never at 1.5 million followers, I'm never going to be like I failed. You know what I mean? I just think that that's the honest, gain from it, is to do exactly what you love to do, make a living out of it, and then inspire others to go do what they want to do. Because we all won't be rich, we all won't be famous, but we all should be able to be happy. And I think that's where happiness comes from, just waking up, doing it. Whatever it is that you want to do, and then being able to help others following their path, and because like you said, we're all different people, so you don't want to do exactly what I'm doing, but it's the same type of stuff. And that's important. It's for people to find out who they are, and then chase whatever it is they're trying to do, so they can capture their happiness. Because we all should be able to have happiness. I understand we all won't be rich, famous, or we all won't have Lamborghinis, but we all should at least be able to be happy and have some peace. So I love hearing you say that. I get a lot of DMs saying that, and that's exactly why I do it. I do it because, of course, I love it, and I want to be successful, and I want to make things happen for myself and my family. But beyond that, I want to be able to help people that I don't know, and I want to be able to inspire others, take it to another level. And that's part of the reason why I respond to so many people. Like you mentioned before we started recording, that I respond and I'm interacting. That's because that's what you're supposed to do. It reminds people that, damn, this dude is. How's the highlights and Bleacher Report? It makes me look so far away, but by one tweet, it brings me that much closer to you, so you can understand that I'm right here just like you. So now they don't, like growing up, Stephen A. Smith, all these guys on ESPN, they look so far away, but they're one tweet away from being right there with you, which makes it seem so possible. It makes everything seem possible when you can put yourself close to somebody. And thank God Twitter has some type of positive outcome.
Yeah,
it can
that shit can be terrible at times.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's about, man.
And honestly, that's how I felt. Like,